Welcome to the 7 Laws of the Learner video series. We're currently in Law 5, the Law of Need. And now, here to tell you about the Law of Need is our teacher, Dr. Bruce Wilkinson.
To start us off, I want to tell you a story about the first time I took our children fishing. They were much younger, and we went to this little tiny pond with a small dock. And I don't think anybody had fished in that little pond for years. There were fish everywhere. And we went out and bought some little tiny Kmart $4.97 rod, reel, and red and white bobbers. They were this long. And David and I, who was real young, went looking for worms. We dug up the worms underneath the rock, and Jennifer and my wife were waiting for us. We came back with these great big long worms. Got the bobber, the brass hook on the end, and then David, for his first time, was trying to put one of these long worms on this little tiny hook. And I mean, he was destroying this worm, putting it on. And Jennifer got real alarmed. She was tiny. She was real alarmed. David, what are you doing? I'm putting a worm on. But why are you hurting the worm? And she looked up at me and she says, Daddy, what did the worm do wrong? Said, nothing, sweetheart. Well, doesn't God love the worm? Yes, Jenny. Well, I'm not doing that to a worm. Well, Jenny, you need to put a worm on the hook. I'm not doing that. So she runs out to the end of the dock with a red and white bobber and her empty brass hook. Jenny, you need to put a worm on. No, Daddy. So she puts it down in the water, and David's got this. And it plops in the water, and there's a fish frenzy. I mean, within 2 seconds, he had a little tiny brim on his rod, and he reeled it up. And, of course, Jennifer runs down and sees his fish for the first time. She wouldn't touch it, but she was all excited. So David gets another worm and puts it on there. And, Jennifer, you want a worm? I'm not putting a worm on there. She goes out to the end, and David catches another fish. Jennifer looks at her pole, looks at his pole. David gets another worm. I watch Jennifer. She moves down right next. The two ends of the poles this far apart, fishing. David catches another fish. Jennifer starts to get teary-eyed. He has a lucky pole, Mom. Can I have your lucky pole? David doesn't know if it's a lucky pole or not. And he looks at me and said, why don't you let her borrow it just one time? Okay. Well, caught the fish, and she didn't want to put a worm on his pole. So David takes her unlucky pole, puts a worm on it, goes to where she was standing at the other end of the dock. David, guess what? Catches a fish. Jennifer does what with her pole? She throws it on the thing, runs to Mommy up on the side. I can't catch any fish. And I go back and sit down with her. I said, Jenny, I wonder why you didn't catch any fish. I don't know. Jenny, what do you think fish love to eat? Our little mind, I don't know. Jennifer, little fish love to eat worms. Why were you fishing with a brass hook? She said, well, Dad, it was so pretty. Jennifer, you don't catch fish with no bait. And you don't catch a class without bait. The reason why a class isn't motivated or turned on and is not interested in what you're going to talk to them about is because you're taking this beautiful brass hook and you're putting it in the water and you're wondering, why isn't the class motivated? I'm going to try and teach you before this session is over. How on earth do you help a class all of a sudden chase you because they want what you're going to tell them in a few moments? In order to do that, I want to try and take a look at the master teacher of all time, named Jesus Christ, and how he baited his hook through 5 different stages, starting with a person who had absolutely no interest in what he was going to say, till at the end he had caught his class. Those 5 steps are something you can use every time you teach. I've used those 5 steps every single law I've taught you, and they've worked every time. In fact, sometimes you would say to me, teach it to me now, because you wanted what was on the hook, because I baited the hook for you. I served you by helping you want what I was going to teach, rather than saying, pay attention. Paying attention says, bite the brass hook. That story about Jesus Christ is in John. It's a very famous story, one that all of us know. It is the woman at the well. But I'm going to try and do some exegesis with you, some observations about this that you may never have seen before. It starts off in John chapter 4. So he, Jesus, came to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, therefore, being wearied from his journey, sat thus by the well. It was about the 6th hour. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. Now watch this. That's his class. Only one student who wasn't even coming to his class, just for a drink of water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." Notice how he starts it out by grabbing her attention. "Give me a drink." That shocked his class. Then in verse number 9, then the woman of Samaria said to him, "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman's?" And then the author helps us know why she said that. For Jews had no dealings with Samaritans. What Jesus Christ did is he shocked the woman. Why did he shock the woman? To get her attention. She came with other things on her mind the same way that all students come to you in my class, with other things on the mind. And he grabbed the attention. He seized it. Because you know that Jews didn't talk to Samaritans, especially Jewish men didn't talk to Samaritan women, especially Jewish men didn't talk to Samaritan women in public, especially Jewish men didn't talk to a Samaritan prostitute in public, especially that a Jewish man who was a rabbi wouldn't talk to a Samaritan woman who was a prostitute in public. Therefore, when he said, "Give me a drink," she was shocked. Now, he only had her attention for about that long. When you grab it, it's fleeting in all of us. You only have it for a split second. Then you got to keep it some way. And the way he kept it is the way you and I should keep it, through the second stage. He said, Jesus answered and said to her, now watch this, he's now going to bait the hook. In fact, if you look carefully, he's going to bait 3 hooks, not 1. Number 1, if you knew the gift of God, and by the way, you don't, and who it is who says to you, and by the way, you don't know who I am, you just said, give me a drink, and when I've asked him, and he would have given you living water. What on earth is living water? Why do you put that 3 hooks? I believe because different people have different interests. Therefore, maybe a piece of bread on the hook, maybe a piece of corn, maybe a worm. Put it out there. If one doesn't work, try another one. Well, Jesus, the master teacher, used 3 all at the same time in one sentence. It doesn't take long to build curiosity. It took Jesus 1 sentence. The question is that fish, is that student going to bite any of those hooks, or 2 of them, or 3 of them? Answer? How many did she bite? She bought all 3. But she bit them in the exact opposite order Jesus Christ gave them. Verse 11 says, the woman said to him, Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where then do you get that living water? That was a 3rd hook. What's the living water you're talking about? Second question, he said, do you know who I am? Are you greater than our father Jacob? Or what about that gift who gave us the well? What are you going to give us in the middle of the desert? And drank from it himself as well as his sons and his livestock. So what happened? Jesus seized her attention, got her curiosity going. Now the question is, she's not even interested or even thinking about where Jesus knows where she needs to be. She needs to be dealing with these questions over here. So whose job is it to bring this student over to the agenda of the class? The teacher's job. How did the teacher do that? Look at verse 13. Jesus moves the discussion a little bit deeper. Jesus answered and said to her, whoever drinks of this water will thirst again. Now watch this. But whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. There's another hook. But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into, look at this next 2 words, what is it? Everlasting life. Do you realize how fast Jesus moved? All of a sudden, give me a drink. If you knew about it, it's everlasting life. I mean, he is moving that fish. That fish is chasing that bait. Everlasting life. And I believe Jesus was quiet, waiting to find out, will the fish strike or not? The woman said to him, Sir, give me this water, that I might not thirst nor come here to draw. Did she understand what Jesus really was talking about? No. But did she ask for the water? Yes. So listen to me for a minute. The student says, I want the water. What did the teacher do? He changed the subject. He didn't say, here's how you can have the water. Listen very carefully. Why didn't he say, here's how you can have eternal life? Answer, because she didn't sense her need yet. She didn't recognize she was a sinner yet. So what's the teacher need to do? Help the student move from kind of the felt need she was having. I want a living water. I don't have to come back here anymore. That'd be great. No. Everlasting life. I want the water. No, you're not asking the right question yet. Listen to that. You're not asking the right question yet. Let me help you ask the right question. So Jesus changes the subject. At least it appears. Jesus, the teacher, said to her, go call your husband and come here. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, you have well said, I have no husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband. In that you spoke truly. There's so much humor in there. I mean, Jesus Christ complimented this woman twice in that sentence. You have well said that you have no husband. You have 5 of them. In that you have spoken the truth. She's complimenting the class. Not about her lifestyle, but about anything he can to keep her coming. Well, the woman said, Sir, I believe that you are a prophet. Why? Because he just told her that about the husbands. Now watch what the woman does. The woman throws a curve to the teacher. The woman changes the subject. She says, our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and you Jews say that in Jerusalem is the place where one ought to worship. Here's what she did. We believe it this way, you believe it this way. If you say this, we're wrong. If you say it's us, then you're wrong. She had him. Now watch what Jesus says. Jesus said to her, women, believe me, the hour is coming when you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. Took away all that problem and complexity. You worship what you don't know. We know what we worship, for salvations of the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is, when true worshipers, and by the way, are you one, will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking such. The Father is seeking you to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship it in spirit and truth. Now watch what this woman says. The woman said to him, I know that Messiah is coming, who's called the Christ. When he comes, he'll tell us all things. What is she really saying? I think you're the Messiah, but I'm too embarrassed to ask you. Now, you need to see this. She comes carrying water for some water, pot for water, and in about 5 or 6 minutes, are you my Messiah? Now, who did that? The teacher did that. And therefore, I want to try and summarize on that chart those 5 steps that Jesus used. Number 1 is to seize attention. You must get a hold of it. The second thing is you can't keep attention until you move deeper. And that's what we call stir curiosity. That's where the person should be saying, whoa, what's this? What are you talking about here? Get them thinking. Number 3, you must stimulate felt